Hi out there, people. Welcome back to the Nick Show. Today, we're going over some interesting zines. You might be interested in getting into self-published literature yourself, either printing your own or starting up a collection. Currently, my collection of zines numbers about 200, I think, and I keep it all in this box. I'm not going to show you the box because I'm currently using it as a tripod, but suffice to say, my zine collection is pretty sizable, and I keep it restocked, and sometimes, occasionally, I trade zines from it. It depends. So in this video, we're going to go over some of my favorite zines in my zine collection. This is by no means a comprehensive list, but I'd like to give some credit and due process to fellow artists and some rarities in my collection and cool stuff like that I think you might be interested in. So stay tuned. We're going to go over some of my favorite zines in no particular order. This is just a general rundown. So, let's check it out. Alright, we're going to start it off in an obvious spot. This is one of my favorite comics I got in my zine collection, Grixley, specifically Grixley number 64. There are a lot of Grixleys, but that's because they take a little less effort than something like my zine, Blotto, and they're only, about 8 pages? Essentially, these are by Nate McDonough, fantastic artist. You probably know Grixley if you're even marginally familiar with modern comics. I got to trade these from him at a Denver Zine Fest, Denver Zine Fest 2024, so yeah, 2 years ago. And he had a comic that was amazing. I actually bought it because it was a long form comic as opposed to these, which are smaller, and it was about cops dying in a wasteland. It was like one of the funniest fucking anti-cop comics I've ever read. But these are just little one-offs. For the most part, they're very tame, slice-of-life type stuff. They deal with comic shop affairs, long boxes, selling comics, so on and so forth, the comic lifestyle. Interesting for anyone who's into that sort of thing. Obviously, I am very much, because I like comics as a medium. On the back cover here, you have a fantastic rendition of, what's his name, Violator from Spawn? Yeah, I think so. I think that's supposed to be Violator from Spawn. He's real fat there, big and scary, and, all the things Violator should be. And on the inside, it's just these little slice-of-life stories about selling comics, cartoonist life, all that sort of thing. He manages to make them very funny at the same time. There's a very human element to Grixley. So I do recommend Grixley. If you ever see Grixley out and about, be sure and pick up a copy. It should also be mentioned, he's very open to trades. I like that. I was able to trade some Blotto for Grixley, and it felt like a real meeting of the minds. I think he's one of the best cartoonists active today. Alright, next up we got a zine that I think I'm the only one to have this probably. This is probably the only copy in existence. This is The Beat. Now, I found these in the most unlikely of places. I was headed out to Hygiene, Colorado, a little town a couple miles out of Longmont, to shoot a video for Hypnagogic Archive, my ARG, and I just saw two of these, two different issues. The other one has In Living Color, the rock band on the front. Not the Wayans show. This one has Iggy Pop. There were two of these just by the side of the highway. So like someone had tossed them out the window of their car or something. And I just happened to stumble across them next to the road. And if I hadn't gone out there to shoot that video, I never would have found this really interesting New England's Rock and Entertainment Guide that is from October 7, 1987. Yeah, it's from 1987, so it's super old. And it has all this cool shit, like an interview with Iggy Pop, an interview with the Gigolo Aunts. I don't know who the hell they are, I suppose you can find their music online probably, but this is a very interesting zine because it's got interviews with all these super old bands. Mass, who knows about Mass, I sure as hell don't, but they're in here, so it's pretty damn cool. I obviously can't recommend this because I'm probably the only one that has it, But it's just a great example of how if you find something super rare and cool, then, you know, really be proud of it, because you're probably the only one who has it. And that's part of the fun of zine collecting, is if you have a real rarity. So I'm very proud of the Beat. Cool frickin' mag. Very interesting. And a great look into the music industry of the time, particularly around the New England area. I really prefer to have some copies of Denver music magazines. I think they'd be more interesting to me. But, you know, this is a fine little resource. Big clock. Look at that design. It's beautiful. Very, very nice looking. Okay, what next? Next up, we got Hot Sauce the Dog. Yet another local comic. This one by Rachel Pollard. Used to run an open mic around. Now plays acoustic guitar music occasionally. I've actually tabled next to her at Zine Fest like twice. I think by coincidence. I'm not sure why, but she's usually right next to me. It's a good fun time. And yeah, there's just a very simple type comic. It's about just a dog. It's basically like Denver's equivalent of Marmaduke or something. And the style is pretty neat. It's like the faces are never closed off. They're always like open. It's very simple. It's very minimalist. But I like how they're always printed on this colored paper. At least the colors are, so you can kind of distinguish between the different colors of issues and which ones you already have and which ones you don't. And the storytelling and sequencing is decent. I read Hot Sauce the Dog. It's pretty good. Pretty good local comic. I'd recommend. It says like color photo. Oh yeah, right there. You know, a little variety, but overall very good comic. Introducing issue 6, a collection of stories and adventures that are mostly true. Going to Mutiny Info Cafe on the corner of Broadway and Ellsworth, meeting a bona fide idol, the godfather of punk scenes, yet life is unfair and heavy, the looper pedal, the gift that keeps on giving. So, you know, very relatable sort of stuff, a bit more fantastical than something like Grixley, which is very down to earth. But I recommend Hot Sauce the Dog. If you ever see it out and about, definitely pick up at least one issue, give it a try, give it a spin, see what you think of it. Okay, next up we have a zine that I actually contributed to. This was 2024, so I think this was spring 2024. And this was the Blackbird Blueprint. This was a zine I contributed to. Lots of political themes in here. A good example of how zines can be used for political activism, although, of course, this was the Biden era, so there wasn't too much that could be done, really, reasonably. There wasn't that much going on. Compared to now, 2026, it feels pretty damn intense. But there's some good stuff. We took submissions from a wide range of contributors with different perspectives and stuff. Who owns Colorado? Private equity firms in Denver, election year, low-key prep, the Devil's Experiment. So some interesting stuff. What did I contribute to this issue? Am I in this issue? Music industry, today's gladiator ring, advertisement, you know, so on. I don't think I contributed anything to this issue, but I did format it. I formatted it. I contributed to it very often. There are about 5 of these printed, I think. It's a neat zine. I recommend it. If you see it out and about, you might not. Yeah, but it was a good collaborative effort, I think. I had fun on it, so. Yeah, Blackbird Blueprint. Yeah, decent zine. Kind of rare these days, especially in Denver. So if you have it, you know, it's a rarity. Next up, we have another older zine that I don't know who made it, but I was traded this one time. It's Video Ooze. I was given this by someone who knew that I was big into the VHS scene, tapes and the like, and horror and sci-fi. And this is just a fantastic little magazine. This is from, what's the publication date? 1991. So a little newer than The Beat, but still, you know, over 30 years. And there's some very interesting shit in here about horror and obscure stuff. Filipino vampires on the cover, obviously. That's a very interesting subject, because the Philippines have their own entire vampire subgenre. It's pretty neat what it goes into about the Filipino vampires. And that's something most horror fans don't know about. And then there's like some reviews, Kiss and Kill. I've never seen Kiss and Kill. I guess it's kind of like, you know, fuck, marry, kill. I don't know. But, just, you know, just some very fun stuff in here. Just like how the beat goes into the music of the time, this goes into the gritty horror aspect in a very fun way and very comprehensive way. This is good, hard-hitting journalism that's completely independent. Your guide to obscure horror and exploitation on videotape. The cover is made out of this very fancy, thick type paper. But yeah, Video Ooze. Obviously, I can't recommend it. I have no idea where you'd even get something like this, but it's really fun to read. So if you ever do see one of these lying about, it's kind of like Fangoria or whatever, but you know, older. So I'd recommend it if you're into VHS or horror. Alright, a couple more local zines. This is Mile High Horrors. I remember when this was coming out. I'm not sure if it still comes out. This is from February 2023. 3 whole years old at this point. But this was a very good little hodgepodge for like local horror fans who would talk about, you know, Scream Screen whenever that was going on, local gatherings of, I don't know, werewolves or whatever, you know, fun shit like that. Upcoming Mile High horror events, Dead by Daylight group play, arcade game night, karaoke night. So it was kind of a little club. I wasn't part of it, but I read the zine heavily because it had some little short fiction and some analyses of horror. So kind of like the last one, Video Ooze, kind of similar. And a lot of just interesting pieces about horror. So kind of like little creepypastas. Nightmares, Your Very Own Liminal Space, Skinamarink. I fucking hate Skinamarink. I think it's overrated as shit, but you know, there was good content in here. I'm not sure if it still goes on, but it was a lot of fun while it was going on. And I remember, if I'm not mistaken, this was going on at the same time I was publishing my horror sci-fi anthology zine, Ludicrous Worlds. So it kind of felt like, you know, I had some peers in the space. I had some friendly competition. Mile High Horrors was a little, I mean, it was, let's be honest, it was a lot shorter than Ludicrous Worlds. This issue's only 19 pages, but, and you know, it's half size, but it was good. I liked it a lot, and there was some fun stuff that went into it. Yeah, I'd recommend it. It's probably pretty common to see floating around in Denver, so check it out if you can. Ooh, this. I haven't thought about this one in a long time. The Mortis Society. What to say about this one? This one was kind of, I'll say, like a low-budget competitor to Mile High Horrors. It was kind of similar, like same-ish vein, except I submitted to this one. I submitted to like the first 3 issues, and you know, I figured I had some pretty dynamite content. But then, with like the 4th issue, the editor was like, "We're trying to make the zine smaller with less content," and I'm like, "Why though? You want people to read it less? Okay, you want to be less successful? All right, you know, the way to make your zine successful is to offer as much value as possible, as much shit going on as feasible, you know? I mean, this was okay, and obviously I knew I had a much better chance of getting published in this when it was just starting out than Mile High Horrors, which when I started reading it had been, you know, had a good foundation to it and had been going on for a couple of years at that point. It was run, obviously, by professionals. Eventually, the Mortis Society started using AI-generated covers, and I was just like, yeah, they don't know what the hell they're doing with zines. They don't know what the frick is going on. You know, the first couple issues were so good. It was like, you know, why do you turn to this cheap gimmick, cut your quality back? It just seems kind of lame. So, you know, not necessarily one of my favorite zines, even though I was featured in it several times, because, I mean, if you compare and contrast Mile High Horrors and Mortis Society, like, one is just, like, objectively better than the other. More feasible work ethic, all things considered. I don't know how else to describe it. Yeah, Mortis Society and Mile High Horrors, two local horror zines. I definitely recommend Mile High Horrors more. It just has more thought going into it. Okay, next up, we have one of the biggest gems out of my collection and one of the newest discoveries I've made. This is Tales from Quilioth, This is volume 2, although I also have volume 1. I had to complete my set because this comic is just so damn good. I might go so far as to say, besides my own work, definitely like top 3 comics coming out of Denver currently. I'm not sure what would be spot 3. Maybe Hot Sauce the Dog. There aren't too many comics coming out, but this is like leagues and miles, just a spectacular fucking production value here. It's printed on really nice paper. The covers are like this glossy type stuff, and then the inside is like this black and white, very pulpy type paper. It's very unique. It's definitely not just normal copy paper. But yeah, the production value on Tales from Quiliath is phenomenal. Creator, M. Yaxon, is very well known online and anywhere, just because the caliber of quality. I found this in a rack that normally dispenses Rooster magazine, which is total crap here in Denver. And I was like, oh my gosh, a comic book? Hell yeah. So I picked it up and I was immediately hooked by the quality, the dedication that goes into this frickin' thing. It's just absolutely phenomenal. I mean, it's everything that an independent comic should be. If you haven't read Tales from Quiliath, you can actually order it. And give a shout out here, prismaticcavern.com. prismaticcavern.com, you can go there, order volume 1 or 2. They're both really, really phenomenal stuff, and I'm very glad I happened onto this, because it's just like a wonderful comic. It's inspired by, obviously, The Dark Crystal and Labyrinth, but the cover here, I have it on good authority that this is inspired by the cover for Roundabout by Yes. Wonderful art. It puts its own little spin on it. It's not exactly like the Roundabout cover. It's unique in its own way. It's got wonderful watercolor. Just the printing quality is just fantastic. There's not much else I can really say about Tales from Quiliath. It's a very good comic, and one of the best of the 2020s, one of the best coming out of Denver. You know, really, what else is there to say about it? Read Tales from Quiliath if you haven't. I cannot recommend this. This is the kind of comic that my generation needs, kind of comic the current day needs. Enough said. Okay, I was debating whether or not to show these off, but these are tiny zines. I have 2 of these, I guess technically 3 of these, but if you can see here, this is a tiny zine. I guess this is like, what, 1/16th size? It's kind of a great example of how ridiculously far the medium can be taken. This is a tiny zine full of tiny things, and there are indeed tiny little things in here, just absolutely freaking tiny. Very cute, and this is what it looks like when it's folded out. It's actually just 1/4 of a piece of paper folded into 8ths. Tiny zine full of tiny things. This is tiny, and I have to keep it in this little Ziploc pouch so that it's nice and safe. But on the other hand, I have this. This is a completely different Ziploc bag, which I think was given to me by a completely different person, completely different Zine Fest. This is Pocket Affirmations, which is the exact same size as the previous one and contains little pocket affirmations. And then this is the smallest zine I have, actually. As you can see, it is just like, what, it's smaller than a postage stamp. It's about half the size of a postage stamp. So that's how freaking tiny a zine can be made. It can be made absolutely ridiculously small. Fairly readable, but it's fun. I mean, it's fun to have little dealios like that in your collection, because you feel like, man, there's so much variety to this fucking medium of zines, I tell ya. So yeah, very cool. Little zines, tiny little microscopic type deals. Yeah. All right, next up we got DIY Witchery. This is Brainscan 33, published by Alex Reck up in Portland. Her address is, or P.O. box is here on the back cover, so I'm not going to show that. But this is a very fun little publication. It's got a very nice cover too, nice smooth sort of cover, and then the inside I think is just standard copy paper. But this is all about an exploration, as it puts it, of secular witchcraft. I didn't notice this before, but the front cover is a typewriter surrounded by candles and Sharpies. And Alex Reck obviously is the author of Stolen Sharpie Revolution, one of the best zine guides out there for anyone looking to get into the medium for the first time, which I have a copy of. This came with Stolen Sharpie Revolution, I guess because it was a surplus copy lying around. I got this for free. A little ultra on the front here of just a typewriter and some Sharpies surrounding it. Very Portland, Pacific Northwest sort of deal. Anyway, this is all about secular witchcraft, building altars, shrines, sigils, stuff like that, you know, belief and practice and all of that. And I like Wiccanism a lot. I like witchcraft. Obviously, I myself cannot be connected too much to that history being a guy, but I find it a fascinating subject nonetheless, and I find Wicca way more interesting than, like, Christianity or Islam. I find Wicca absolutely fucking interesting. So this is a nice comprehensive zine about, you know, how to be a secular witch, how to think about things in a secular way, but still do, like, occasional witchy type stuff, like candles and sigils and stuff. Or in the back, you know, witches love jars. A very fun publication. I'm not sure if I will ever trade anything with Alex Reck again. Oh yeah, I sent Alex Reck a copy of Blotto. That was a long time back, what, 2023 something? Anyway, this is a very fun publication. I'm not sure how available brain scans 1 through 32 are. I do have another brain scan. I was sent 2, but this is brain scan 33. Lots of brain scans. Lots of issues of that. So, yeah, this is a pretty fun little addition to any zine collection. I definitely recommend it. Just right up to, you know, Portland Button Works. I think that's what it's called. They make, like, pins and zines, so fun stuff. Very Portland feeling, you know. You definitely know when something feels like Seattle or Portland. It just does. Okay, next up, we got Origin Story, a Blanks Anarchy magazine put out by Mike Coppolino. Now, this is a real treat, a real golden rarity of the Denver circuit, because there are so many of these Blanks Anarchy magazines. Most of them are a quarter-page format. This is the only full-page zine I got from Mike Coppolino, but I was very happy to get this because every single one is just jam-packed with hilarious jokes that are done in the Mike Coppolino fashion. He's one of the best local comedians, absolutely hilarious. Whenever I catch him at a Santa Fe open mic, I make sure to trade whatever I've got at the time for a couple of these because they are phenomenal output. They just jam-pack the humor in, and if you've ever seen him perform live, reading one of these feels exactly like watching one of his stand-up routines, where it's just this very, very funny stream of consciousness sort of deal. And the jokes, you kind of have to read them twice to understand them. They're very nuanced and layered. But the fact that he can just pack it in, just pack in the humor, I mean, these are a fantastic value. You see them occasionally, you do, and whenever I see them, I make sure to snap them up. I've got, I think, more of these than any other zine. I've got, like, what, 10 of these at this point? 15 maximum, maybe 12 minimum. Wonderful stuff. Look at how jam-packed this content is. This is, like I say, a zine with great value. So if you ever see one of these with this type format, this type look to it, it's a Mike Coppolino publication, and it's phenomenal. I just read an example to you here from the Origin Story zine. So I called my mother at the hospital, and she calmed me down. Getting a flight to Grand Rapids was impossible because I was broke and still am. People store up all their pissed off in a lifetime for defending their moms. I should know. I'm a comedian. Yeah, so lots of fun stuff in here. Yeah, like I say, it's very nuanced and layered. First, let me tell you the whole toad joke. The security of limited opportunity, cocaine, heroin, PCP, what people like me get high on bath salts and have a great time. And it can be difficult to read at points, but it's all the more rewarding when you realize the direction it's supposed to be read in. It's just phenomenal. This is one of the best publications coming out of Denver. Not a comic, but done by a comic, and a lot of fun. A lot of great value to this one. So I definitely recommend it. Very interesting stuff. Each one is different. Each one has brand new spanking material that's just fresh and funny and interesting. Yeah. Okay, last two, just a couple left here. This is a zine, which I think illustrates well the practical application of zines to talk about politics. This was sent to me by Sarah Century, used to live here in Denver, just not anymore. And this is Scream and gender politics. A girl walks into a VHS rental store at night. Do you like scary movies? A lot of essays about the Scream franchise, the final girl. And here on the cover, as you can see, it's this like handmade stamp of the ghost face mask, I guess. I am not a big fan of the Scream franchise by any means. I've only seen the first one, and mostly I just like the first scene with Drew Barrymore, and after that I could give less of a shit about it. I don't think Scream stacks up to, Halloween, obviously, or even A Nightmare on Elm Street, really, but this is an interesting zine because obviously Sarah Century, who wrote it, is big into it and talks about the gender politics, the gay politics, the ton of stuff that's really interesting and I wouldn't necessarily think about just watching Scream. And I wouldn't necessarily think something like Scream would have that much depth and nuance to it, but it got some interesting commentary on it here. Of course you know that Sydney isn't really the final girl. There have been plenty of final girls since her, and there will be more to come. By now, Sydney is herself an archetype to be homaged and subverted. A best-case scenario final girl whose trauma never got the better of her. Even in the middle of a Greek tragedy turned slasher movie, Sydney is a genuinely good person, and that means something. It's what keeps her alive. Sydney isn't in Scream 6, but Gail brings her up twice. First, she tells the Carpenter sisters that she's spoken to her, and she's getting her family to safety. She deserves her happy ending, she says, and the sisters agree. I haven't seen Scream 6, but, I mean, this is a fascinating companion commentary on the Scream franchise for those of you who have seen all of them and want to think about it in a nuanced and reflective way. This is the sort of thing that zines are really good at, is just talking about something in depth, with nuance, with layers and layers of political thought. It's very, very interesting. I'm not sure how available this is. It's very mysterious. I just got sent it. I don't know if there are any left or anything, but yeah, fun zine. Interesting, because it's just the thoughts of one person on a movie franchise that she finds kind of interesting. So, yeah, not much more to say about this one. Good stuff. Finally, the final zine I wanted to bring up is Denver Tiki Times, another local publication. This one's from January 2024. It's still running as far as I know. And this is a really interesting publication because it covers the tiki subculture, which, obviously has relationships with exotica and lounge back in the 1950s. Those were big. I myself am pretty big into lounge revivalism with groups like Combustible Edison. They're one of my favorites. I think they're very underrated. So it's nice to see a zine that plunges headfirst off the deep end into a really niche subculture that you wouldn't think has a very big impact on a landlocked state like Colorado, a city like Denver where there is no beach, no palm trees, nothing remotely associated with Hawaii. The guy that runs this, he just goes in depth about all the stuff that tiki culture is related to Denver and about, and amazingly he has not yet run out of content to fill this zine up with. So there's some very, very interesting stuff in here. History of guitars, the Ventures model, the Flame guitar, Joe Mathis model, Surfright 12-string. It got an article all about Trader Vic's restaurant. I guess in the tiki subculture, everyone calls each other Trader, and that's not Trader like Benedict Arnold, but Trader is in, you know, a trader of goods. I think that's actually where Trader Joe's came from, that terminology. So lots of interesting stuff here in the Denver Tiki Times. A lot of commentary on various stuff. An evening with Vincent Price, so on and so forth. Really interesting stuff about this subculture that barely anyone cares about if they're not in Hawaii. And, you know, I would guess even in Hawaii it's less prevalent these days. The Master Carvers of Maui International Festival of Canoes. It's a good example of a niche type zine that covers a subject that you wouldn't necessarily expect, but it just goes on and on about it in detail for a decent, very good amount of pages. In the back here, tiki trivia, stuff like how did the Blue Hawaiian cocktail get its name, what does Black Tot Day commemorate, so on. So yeah, I recommend this. This is a good publication. It's interesting. Yeah. Oh, there you have it. A little rundown of some of my favorite zines in my collection. There's some very good stuff in here, like I say. And the next time you are hankering for some zines, be sure and check out the Denver Zine Library. They're one of the best local resources. You can check out, I think, up to 5 zines for 3 weeks. And just so long as you bring them back and you come a couple times. I also, of course, recommend Denver Zine Fest if you want to start up your own little zine collection and you're in the Denver area. Good stuff all around. You know, it just shows the diversity of zines as a medium and as a creative outlet for people. And yeah, I have immense confidence and faith in print media, and I think it's cool as heck to collect it, for sure. So yeah, check these out next time you're out and about. And it'll be all for me today. Just going over some of my favorites. I might do another of these videos on some different zines if I build out my collection a little more. Like I say, I have over 200, but this is really like the cream of the crop right here, the top tier stuff. So yeah, that'll be all for me today. Yeah, have a fantastic day and keep reading. Sporish.